We start with the introduction of this webinar tonight. In Horto Sanitas all'ora del tè, horticulture at tea time. The speaker tonight will be Guillaume Morel-Chevillet from the French Technical Institute of Horticulture, ASTREDHOR Marseille, France. I remind to all of you that the webinar is recorded and it will be available in our page, at the Facebook page and YouTube channel of our group. Guillaume Morel-Chevillet, after 8 years working as a landscape architect and engineer in France and the USA, related to green roofs, he's 30 years old, and then he discovers the urban farming movement in Montreal, Canada in 2013. Since 2015, he works from the French Institute of Horticulture, ASTREDHOR, specifically on urban farming research. From 2015 to 2017, he analyzed more than 70 urban farming professional projects. Wow! In the USA, Canada, Europe, and in France. Now he's managing research programs about urban farming, such as the Interreg Northwest group, and you can see the website where you can find lots of information about his projects. He's giving courses to different universities, schools, and is providing expertise for architects, public authorities, and others, and he's giving us a seminar tonight. In 2017, he wrote a book called Agriculture urbaine, du balcon à la profession, Urban Farmers from Balconies to Careers. This book, at the moment, unfortunately, is only in French, but focuses on urban farmers and new jobs that have been created through this movement. From social landscape architects, rooftop greenhouses gardeners, indoor farmers, urban microfarms jobs, this book also shows future prospects for traditional agricultural sectors. You can take a look at the website where you can find the book. I remind to all the participants that this series of webinars has been organized under the frame of a classroom at the University of Turin dedicated to advanced cultural systems, and urban agriculture is one of the topics that we deal with in the class. And on behalf of all the group in horticultural science in my department, I welcome Guillaume Morel-Chevillet, and I give him the floor for his talk tonight. Thank you very much, Guillaume. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Silvana. So I will share my screen just to let you see my presentation. Is that working? Okay.
It's coming.
Okay. It's coming.
To cross the Alps. Not yet. Still on the Alps.
Still on the Alps. So maybe I will stop my video if it's too slow.
Yeah,
thank you very much.
Video, yeah,
yes, I will.
During the presentation. I still don't see the screen. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Now,
so it's quite slow.
we can see it. Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much for the University of Turin for the invitation. I'm really pleased. Please feel free to ask questions also by using the chat, and I can answer to them now or later. And we have 1 hour, 1 hour and a half together to talk about green roofs and especially professional agriculture on those roofs. So how a roof can become a really nice place to create activities related to urban farming and especially professional activities. So we will see together different techniques that can be used from substrate solution to hydroponic, aeroponic solutions, and also some greenhouses on a roof, which are quite rare, but we are working on that on a European project, and I will show you what we are studying now. But first, let me introduce this topic. So introduction quickly up. I will do fast because you already did that, but not my institute. Quickly, who we are. So we have different experiment stations around France, and we work for the horticulture professionals of production of flowers, plants, also nurseries with trees. And we are only almost 100 employees, engineers and doctors, and we have many professional subscribers, and they decide for us what kind of study we are going to do. So we are really close with the professionals of horticulture. About green roof, if I focus on that, a quick history of the green roof, it's interesting to see that it's not so new, especially the most famous one, which are the gardens of Babylon, right in the middle of the desert. You had, because we cannot find them now, but it was famous in a few centuries ago. The suspended gardens, it was one of the wonder of the world. So we know the techniques exist before, and now we have new techniques, of course, but in a way they are similar to this one. Also in Scandinavia, it's famous to have this kind of green roofs. They do it in a really traditional way by using natural materials, such as the plates of barks, for waterproofings, and they recreate the landscape around by taking pieces of landscape and putting them on a roof. And if you go in Scandinavia, you can find many of those small houses using those traditional techniques. If I go really fast on the future, and at the beginning of the 20th century, one of the famous French architects, Le Corbusier, was using the roofs as a way to express his architecture and his design. And he used the term of fifth facade. It's not something only just to take away the water, the rainwater, but also to create atmosphere, to create social links, and also to have gardens on roofs. One of my favorite architects is Hundertwasser. He's from Germany and Austria, and he was built many interesting gardens on his buildings, and is a mix between ecology, art, and architecture. It was one of the first contemporary green roofs, especially in Austria and Germany, and it's part of the counterculture of the 60s, 70s, and it's the birth of an important concept, which are the green cities concepts. And now it's quite popular, and many cities are going on this concept, but it was started by this with these architects. So now, as you can see on those different pictures and photos, many neighborhoods, many parts of the city are using this concept of green, sustainable urbanism. Sometimes it's really nice and well designed, and it's really focused on energy, social approach, and it's very sustainable. And sometimes it's just greenwashing. For example, the Masdar project in the middle of the desert. It's a way they are using this kind of concept in order to implement new kind of cities, but I'm not sure if it's totally greenwashing, because they try to innovate, especially for energy. But we have to take care as architects, engineers, and when we are working on the sustainability of the plants, of the green on the city, we have to always think about is it costly, how we can maintain it, how much water it's need, what can be the plants, the best plants, etc., etc. So urban farming on roofs are part of those dynamics. Urban farming, there are two definitions. There are many definitions. In fact, there are a lot. I'm sure in Italy you have your own researcher, and they define urban agriculture. But I'm using two of them. One is from France, and the other one is from Canada. And I think like this you will understand what is this concept. So the first definition is It's an agriculture located in a town or around the town, whose products are mostly dedicated to city, so it's production for city, and it's generating competition and complementarity for resources, especially the land, especially the water, sometimes the labor. So it's also competition between rural and cities, but a complementarity as well. Another definition is interesting. It's the one by Eric Duchemin in Canada, and it's more focused on social approach, and it talk about reappropriation of the public spaces in a major social movement, and is also using the term of urban resiliency, which is, I think, quite relevant for urban agriculture. So how it can be part of the city? Now many cities have urban farming. It can be non-professional, like shared garden, collective gardens, or individual balconies like here. But sometimes, and more often, I observe that there are many professional farms. They can be on a roof, so we are going to talk about that tonight. They can be indoor or underground. They can be on historical park, or they can also be on rivers. For example, I know that in Italy, in Florence, they had a really interesting project of floating greenhouses on a river. It was, I think, just a project, but now in Rotterdam, for example, there is one greenhouse on a river. So tonight we are focused on garden on a roof, and especially professional farm on a roof, how it works. So it's technical, but what kind of research we can do. So it's also part of my research now, and what can be the business model, how it works in terms of economy. A quick overview also about the world, what's happened in the world. So it's from a study, international study, about 150 rooftop projects were analyzed, and they find that many of them are using containers, like you can see in this picture, the red color. 60% are from these techniques. Hydroponic is also well famous, 20%. I don't know how to say that in English, but it's not container, it's fill of substrate for all the roof. It's 60% of the urban farms on a roof, and also a part of aquaponic system. They are mixing fish production and vegetable production, but it's only 2% of the projects observed by this study. Sorry, it's a French one, but I think you will understand this diagram. It's just to show you that rooftop projects are part of the multifunctionality of urban agriculture, social function, environmental function, and economical function, and they provide to the city many interesting functions from the social, economy, and environmental function. It's really well documented now by researchers. That's why roofs now are part of the urban nature strategy for many cities all around the world. I will focus on Paris because I know well this city, and I will show you how Paris are taking its roof as a way to increase nature, increase urban agriculture inside the city. Of course, they don't have many space around the city and inside the city. I mean, some deep soil and some nice plot to do this kind of activities. That's why they are using roof. My vision and the vision of many people is that the future of the city can be much more greener than it's now. So the future, as you can see on those, we'll say metaphoric pictures, we can use roof, we can use different parts of the buildings in order to increase the green and increase the quality of life by capturing the water, having a nice effect on the temperature, etc. And the biodiversity also is a really current on actual topic, which is really important for future of the city. It's from an architect, which is from Belgium, Luc Schuiten, and is making this kind of futuristic vision of the city. So we have to dream, I think it's a dream, but it can become a reality because now the techniques, now the economy is ready for that. Here you can see a mapping, interesting mapping, I think, of the city of Paris and how agriculture was really close to the city before. So in white on those maps, it's the urban, it's the buildings, and you have different colors representing different kind of agriculture. So for example, the yellow color are the field crops, the wheat, for example. The orange color is horticulture and community gardens, and the red color it's orchard, vines and orchards, fruit production. So in the past, you can see that Paris was really surrounded by horticulture and arboriculture also, but on many field crops were surrounded the city, and you still have the big parks which are still existing now. We call it the green belt. You can see these green belts, edible green belts during the 19th century. It was really strong, really robust, but you see that the urbanism is slowly increasing, the transportation are increasing, and slowly the agriculture disappear. And today it's not really nature, productive nature, for agricultural nature. It's I will say recreational nature from parks, landscape, square, etc., etc. But pieces of the cities, when you are looking carefully, as you see the narrow here, you see that there are pieces of urban agriculture inside the city now of Paris. It was existing before because of the collective gardens, but now we have a new kind of urban agriculture, which are professional ones. And I will focus on them just to explain how roofs are part of the urban nature of the city. And now it's 15 hectares of the urban farming inside the city of Paris. So first, the city did a really nice analysis of all the potential potential roof inside the city that can be good and nice to have a roof green on them, to have urban farming on them. So they make this really interesting study. So here is just a map, synthetic map of the potentiality of roof to accept to be green, and the potential is 80 hectares of flat and robust rooftop. So this conclusion was explaining to the mayor of the city, and the mayor is using this data in order to express his strategy, and he say, in the future, she say, in the future, we can have many green roofs inside my city, so I will organize that. So from 2013, sorry, she decided to go a little bit more deeper on the green roofs. So first, she worked with architects on real estate in order to create specific call for tenders on different plots, and they say that many of them has to have green roof on green facade. So now they in Réinventer Paris, which is a specific call, it was 2 years ago, 22 laureates, so they win new projects inside the city, and 11 of them were with urban farming inside the building, on the roof, on the facade. They also have a specific modification of the local urban rules in order to accept rooftop greenhouses, for example, because before it was forbidden to do it because of historical protection for regulation, but now it's possible. They also use another way to increase green roof on urban farming inside the city by sending a call for tender called Pariculture. So I was part of the season 1 and season 2, and now it's the season 4. And the idea is they have a potential green roof, inside the city, and they say to urban farmer, okay, please provide us a project, and we will have a specific jury, and we will choose what is the best project for each site. So more than 69 urban farming company answer to this call, and there were 33 laureates with a total of 5.5 hectares of roofs. Sometimes it was land on the ground, but most of the projects were on a roof. So they involve public partners and also private partners. So it was public library, public swimming pool, schools of the city, but also private like hotel, supermarkets, etc., etc. So 2.5 million euro were invested by the city of Paris for this first season, but it was mostly to repair the roof, because you know that a roof has to be repaired every 40, 50 years. So they use this money to invest on a new waterproofing, and also to help the urban farmer to install inside Paris. So you see that more than 120 local jobs were created. Example of project here. So I will go deeper on some of them to explain how they work. But the idea here is they are self-efficient in terms of economy. They provide jobs, and they sell food and services to the city, and they can be self-efficient. One of the most famous now in Paris is in the opera, La Bastide, by Topager. We also have Agripolis, which is now a big company with more than 6 big green roofs. And some of the projects are not only producing food, but also flowers, like this one, Flore Urbaine. It's cutting flowers for gardens and for citizens. Another call in Paris, still in this city. It's interesting to see that, for example, these new big buildings, it was not new buildings, it was an old one, a rehabilitation of an old one buildings, and they also make a big international call for tender. It's a little bit special because it's a huge one. It's 7,000 square meter of flat roof without many damage on the roof, so it's a really perfect one. And the winner have a mix between greenhouse on the roof production, which is really high tech with vertical systems of production, and a part of using soil like permaculture production. They are also having community gardens in the roof, and they supply food and also provide many services. There are 10 employers on this one. Another way to be part of the big nature strategy is to work with the real estate and the supermarkets. So I used to do that in my town in Marseille with the project Le Verger. Le Verger meaning the orchard. So the idea here is the greenhouse on a roof, as you see on those diagrams on images, where the investment was paid by the supermarket and the real estate. So it's a mix of economical mix between the real estate and the supermarket. So they invest on the roof, on the greenhouse. It's quite costly, and we will talk about how much it costs to build a greenhouse. And the idea here is to find after that the urban farmer to work under this big greenhouse. And so we have an open call, international open call, with German, French, Spanish urban farmers. They answer to the call in order to work on the roof, on the greenhouse. And now it's under discussion to how much it's gonna cost for a rent, because the key part is the rent, how much it's gonna cost for the urban farmer, on what kind of technical system and what kind of distribution channel he will use under those greenhouses. So it's under discussion. So I want to show you some technical specificities of having an urban farm on a roof. So the first one is the context, for sure. It's understand the urban context. So it's quite obvious, but we have shade on the cities, so it's not a common flat field on the rural agriculture. So we have to take care of the shadow. But in a roof, what is really difficult can damage the roof is the wind, because we have lots of turbic effect like this, and the wind can damage the roof, especially the corners. So we have to take care and to anticipate the wind effects. And the idea here, you see some drawings, pictures, is to do a good analysis at first of the bioclimatic condition of the roof. It's not really common. Also, when you are on a roof, you have a limitation, which is the bearing, how many kilograms you can have on your roof. It's depending of the quantity of substrate, depending of the quality of the structural material of the roof. So here are some key elements. For example, if you don't have many bearings, so if you have 100 to 180 kilograms per square meter, you just have 10 to 15 centimeters of substrates, and with that you can grow aromatic plants, some salads, radish, edible flowers, but you cannot have, you see like cucumbers, like eggplants. For this kind of plants, you need to have a little bit more bearing, so 180 to 250 kilograms per square meter, which means 50 to 20 centimeters. So here you can have garlic, you can have onions, you can have strawberries, etc., etc. And if you have a little bit more bearing, so it's beginning to be quite rare, you have between 20 to 30 centimeters of thickness of your soil, and you can have potatoes, courge, cucurbitacea, I don't know how to say in English, on some fruits. And if you have more than 50 centimeters, of course, you are here with nice roof, and you can have some trees, orchards, whatever you want. Specification for hydroponics, and we will go a little bit deeper on that. You don't need too much bearing on that. With hydroponics, only 80 kilograms per square meter with some growing system, it's okay. So that's why it's also interesting to use this kind of techniques on the roof. Also some technical drawings. It's specific for farming on a roof. It's like farming on the field, but it's important to have in mind that people can go up, especially people on a chair, so take care about them. It's important that some of them need to access, especially if it's a public access. If it's not public, otherwise you can do something different. Think about how to move on your roof. So it's 50 centimeters of in order to let people circulate on your roof. It's basic, but it's important to have that in mind, that not all your roof can be cultivated, and you have to think about circulation. You also have to think about technical component, something to clean your fruit and vegetable, it's a place to store your tools, because we use many tools, a place to rest and for the public to stay and to have a conversation, etc., etc. It's specific for urban farming activities. Also, we have trouble with the birds, because the birds, they love to eat strawberries, cherries, every product. So most of the roof are using, nests to protect about the birds, and also about the wind. Here it's wind protection and also bird protection, because as you remember, the wind can be really can damage the roof a lot. So it's important to hold every structure and to protect your plants against the wind effect. Those are technical specificities of urban farming on roof to compare with traditional green roof. They don't have those things. So here we'll focus on the substrate-based solution, which are using substrates, and they are quite common now in urban agriculture. So here is a traditional, I will say, component of a green roof, and it's really similar for urban farming. And you see the different layers from the support element. Most of the time it's concrete. Sometimes you have wood or steel, but it's concrete. You have a really important layer, which is the waterproofing against the rain and the water. And for us, what is important is the drainage layer and substrate layer for sure. So I also put it here that it's mostly the urban farmer or the landscaper which need to put those layers on the roof, and of course the vegetation, the plantation. But it's this sandwich of layer. It's quite common. There are many regulations about that. You cannot do whatever you want, except if you are in your private house. It's your risk. But once you work on the public, on big buildings, you have to respect this kind of layers and regulation. Here it's also a drawing showing the different French regulation, but I'm sure for Italy and for other countries, in the US, it's also really similar. You have many regulations for each things you put on a roof. You see from the fence against the protection against the felt, and all the different regulations for each component you are using on your roof. You cannot do whatever you want. It's quite strict. Even for the substrates, you have to respect some basic regulation by using specific substrates, but you can play with that. I will show you different strategy. Here are some pictures of the and some drawings of the drainage layer, how the water is drained out of the roof and also can be held on the roof, because it's also interesting to have some techniques to store the water for a minimum of time, the time for the roots of the plant to catch the water on the drainage and to go up to the plant and to irrigate the plant. So there are, as you see on this picture, for example, many roots are going through the membrane, the protection membrane between the substrate and the drainage, and they go through the drainage to pump the water. You have many different kind of drainage, from mineral granulate to like modules or different kind of layers, much more industrial ones. Here it's interesting one because they are using recycled materials in order to create the drainage. It's recycling shoes here, and it's a new product. Talking about irrigation, water irrigation is a key, of course, to compare with traditional green roof. In urban farming, we need irrigation to have nice production on yields. So here are some interesting key points, but I'm not going deeper on that. It's the pressure of the water and the number of points of water, access water on your roof. Many of the urban farmers are using gutters. It can be out of the soil or inside the soil, as you can see in this picture. And also, as you can see here, you can use the drainage as a way to store your water in order to release the water to the plant. But the irrigation is the key. It's quite also rare to have some, rainwater storage. To store the water on a roof, it's not so easy because of the bearing. We don't have many bearings, so we have to store the water really close to the bottom of the buildings, which is not so convenient. So it's something need to be developed. So about the substrate, also it's conflicting characteristic because we need to be light, of course. We don't want something too heavy. We have to be really draining because we don't want the water to stay too long on the substrate. It has to be filtering. Have a good water behavior. So it's conflicting between very draining and also has to be released to the roots. He has to provide nutrients, of course, especially the N. It has to keep its volume over the time. Otherwise, we have to bring other materials on the roof, and it's really costly. And he has to allow the anchoring of the plants because of the wing defect, especially. He has to be quite robust. So now many minerals components are using, especially the volcanic, but they are not sustainable because it's not renewable. Also the clay you see here, and here you can see some products which are using now, like the concrete, like the bricks or the concrete. They have to be clean, but it can be used. It's a bit heavy, so the roof has to be quite heavy to sustain them. So based on that, we develop a specific research program. So we have many axes, but one of them are the use of organic and mineral wastes from the cities in order to grow plants. And this kind of you see here is this kind of new project. So here it's on the left, it's the Cité Maraîchère of Romainville. It's the suburbs of Paris, and they build these really big greenhouses, vertical greenhouses, using natural lights and using substrate, as you see on this picture inside. So now the project is already done, it's built, and it's working now. I think I have the picture of that in some of the slides. And there are questions about how the substrate can be circular. So how we can use waste from the neighborhood to create a good substrate, which is nice for this kind of project. So we try different varieties of materials. So we work with regulation. So we test them in terms of heavy metals, in terms of sanitary approach. We also work with INRAE in terms of really specific physico-chemic characteristic of the soil. It was a 2 years experiment, and we test species, we test tomatoes and basil mostly, and we have really interesting results on tomatoes. We here on the T, it's the or commercial substrates, and the other ones are the different tests we had on results. And the good results were with landscape waste mixed with organics waste from restaurants in a traditional way to do the compost. So they were composting for 3 months with an industrial process, and we have really nice result. And we mixed them with concrete plus wood in order to have a part of mineral for the drainage, especially, and for the roots, the quality of the roots. We also have good result with 100% organic, so without any mineral. For basil, we don't have nice result because we use seeds, and from seeds, only the 100% organic material were working well, really close to the industrial from the commercial substrate. Some case of business model for this kind of urban farming project on the roof using substrate. It's not really high productive in terms of yields per square meter, but they are really, really interesting for social and links between the neighborhood and the project. So for example, Veniverdi here, it's interesting because they have many projects all over Paris, more than 15 projects on the roofs. Here it's an example of a quite small one of 200 square meter on a building, old building during the 60s. So the idea here is to produce vegetables for the workers on the buildings for the employees of the building, because it was a private building and they sell the product directly to the buildings. It was before you see big bags like this. So they bring the substrate by using a crane and they climb the substrate up to the roof by using big bags. But now they switch to this kind of, you see, continuous beds of substrate plus mound. So they create small mound in order to have more thickness and to produce a much more huge variety of species. Some from tomatoes, squash, fava, artichoke, peas, etc. Edible flowers also, because they want to sell specific products adapted to the city. They also have, as you see on these drawings, they have many other projects. So they also centralize their products. It's another strategy they use in the same local grocery in order to sell that to a larger public. They also have team building activities related with the employees. So they have activities to coaching and explain how it works, how nature and how agriculture is working. They also have activities with the students in another place. And they also have a link with the rural by by buying seeds, substrate from traditional producer. They also have, as you see, other projects from the same company, which is Veniverdi. Actually, it's not a company, it's an NGO, so an association, but they have many employees, like more than 15 employees. So their current challenges are to find local plant provider. It's okay for seeds, but for plants in Paris, around Paris, it's difficult. Quality, specific species, etc. They have trouble with irrigation during summer season and saving rainwater. As I told you about this one, it's quite difficult on the roof to save rainwater. And about the regulation, it's always tricky. I don't have time to go deeper on that, but we have fire regulation, public accessibility. So we need to have specific materials like the fence, like specific elevators, evacuation of the roof, etc. So it's quite costly. Another example here quickly, it's the one in Chicago I used to visit 5-6 years ago. It's a roof on a restaurant, so it's another business. It's quite simple to understand that some restaurants, especially the finest one, they want to show and to have really fresh products, so they pay a specific urban farmer just to maintain a edible roof on the top of the restaurant. It's not really sustainable in terms of economy, because it doesn't produce a lot, only 650 kilograms per year. So for a big restaurant, it's not enough at all, but it can produce some specific plants like edible flowers, like microgreens, like specific species of tomatoes, for example. But also it's a way to communicate and a way to be attractive. It's not greenwashing, but not too far sometimes, but it's interesting to see that it's existing. And another one which is also really famous, it's the Brooklyn Grange in New York. This one is big in terms of surface area. It's more than 3,000 square meter, and they have 3 roofs like those, so more than 1 hectare for the company. And their business model is selling really fresh products, like you see here, some cutting salads and different species of salads. They also transform the product to create like salsa, tomato salsa, because they have some tomatoes over here. They also sell services landscape services because they are really attractive and people are coming to see them and say, hello, I want the same in my terrace or in my balcony. Can you provide the landscape services? So it's part of their business to sell services of landscape. And also one of their business is to sell to rent the roof for specific events. For example, if you want to get married, you can rent a part of the roof, and there are a specific area over here, and you can have many guests, and it's quite costly, and it's more than 5,000 dollar for one day of renting, so you can have your marriage. And it's the only roof and in the only projects that I have to pay to visit it. Otherwise, it was free, but their business is also the visits of the roof. Now we can talk about the XPONIES solutions, which are a little bit different because they are using high-tech systems. Here you see a diagrams of how it works. So it's not really difficult to install them because you just have your waterproofing protection, of course, against the roots. Not for them, it's not so important, but for the substrate, it was really important. And you can have quite quickly your installation of vertical hydroponics or vertical wall. Here are some pictures of how it can look. So here are it's Agripolis. I will go deeper on this company, and they're using towers of vertical production. Here it's Totem. Totem, it's also a French company, and they are using also vertical tower, but it's a bit different because the plant is like scratch on the tower. It's also working well. It's really similar to green walls. Green walls are the traditional ones, but not so traditional, but with ornamental plants, and it's working like this. You see different cuttings of cutting drawings, and you see that they're using substrate sometimes with gutter here. They can use some small containers, plug on a roof, on the wall, sorry. And you can also use some specific membrane, which are inorganic membrane, and you have your roots directly on this membrane with the different sprinklers. It can look like this for green walls, but they can be edibles. All those walls you see are edibles. This one is in Quebec, around a restaurant. This one is in Chicago, also a restaurant. So it's one of the biggest green wall in Chicago. There are many walls like this, mostly aromatic plants here. And this one is on the roof on Paris. They are using these vertical walls techniques on the roof, and they use membrane on different organic fertilizers. And you see the different species, they're mixed flowers and also plant edible vegetable production. The business model of Agripolis is quite interesting because they have many roofs now, more than 5 rooftops, and they are opening a 6th one in Paris. It's one of the biggest roof also in Paris. Not this one, but another one I will show you. So this number is wrong. It was 2 years ago. Now they have much more square meter in total because of the biggest one. I will show you this one later. But their business model is only based on selling vegetables. They are not doing social activities or pedagogical team buildings for employees or specific events. They are just selling their product, and they are working like this. They are also selling the towers. So part of their business is selling products, which are the tower for individuals or for other urban farmers. Their production is around 50 to 150 kilograms per square meter because they are using high-tech systems. They have some difficulties sometimes because of the wind, because of the shadow, because of electricity trouble. I will show you. But they manage well their product. Actually, before it was prototypes. Now it's version 3 or 4 now of the tower, so it's working well. Their product many things. They're producing many things from tomatoes to radish to parcel, chocolate papers. It's specific species of tomatoes. Of course, it's not the traditional one. It's a more compact species. They start with their own plantlet. They are making their own germination rooms, and now they have contracting with a peri-urban grower in order to have their own plantlet cultivated by professional nursery. The water consumption is quite low to compare with soil production. They sometimes integrate plant protection like insect proof, depending of the production, of course. I saw that insect proof for against the mosca on strawberries. They are not using pesticide. The electricity consumption is one of the weakness, I will think, because they are using 2 submerged pump per roof, and they are quite depending of the electricity consumption. If there are some trouble with electricity, the project can be in danger. They also need to anchor their tower in order to fight against the winds. So they use a bamboo structure to stabilize everything. So here are a picture of one of the biggest one they have now. It's on the it's on the park exposition park in Versailles. It's more than 5,000 square meter of production. So strawberry here, tomato here, and many leafy greens and leafy production here. They also have a part which are here using containers, but it's not the same company. It's another company called Culture Permanente. So it's a mix of 2 companies. They contract to wind this roof and in order to maintain or to work on this roof. So now it's 6 persons working on this entire roof, 6 full employees. We used to work. Sorry, I have trouble. Sorry. Thank you very much for the sound. So we used to test them for 1 year. We have a short experimental test just to see if organic fertilizer is possible. So we test human urine, which a provider is from Switzerland. We test plant waste from agriculture, which is a traditional organic fertilizer. And we also taste juice from composts from les alchimistes, which are urban farmers specialized on organic compost collected on the urban area. And we have really nice results with urine fertilizer for tomatoes and also for basil. Because of the quantity of nitrogen on the urine mostly. But we have to continue those tests. It was just a short one for 1 season of production, but you see the towers were really nice and we have quite good yields with them. And I will finalize my presentation by talking about rooftop greenhouses and circular solutions. It's based on our European projects. So roof is part of the metabolic. We have to see building as something organic. We have some waste, we have waste energy, we have wastewater, we have waste fertilizers, etc., etc. So the idea of the roof, the idea of the greenhouse is to collect those waste in order to grow plants as maximum as we can, especially the CO2. It's for us quite important in the European project. You see some drawings of some synergies between the urban green roof and the building itself. So green roof are parts of this synergic and circular systems. especially for energy, of course. Many energy are wasting from the roof to the atmosphere. So it's important, interesting to collect this energy. So it's heat, mostly heat. We also try to collect the water from the buildings, the wastewater, in order to produce plants, and also, why not, the gas? Some in gas, for example, from the office or from the housing. So the idea was was well studied in Barcelona by partners from the University Autonomous of Barcelona. They have an existing rooftop greenhouse, and we have this idea to develop this and to create some prototype all around Europe. Let's see that. So first, worldwide expansion. There are now some economical viable projects using rooftop greenhouses. You have some example here in Europe. We have a specific map that you can find many information for each project. It's on construction 21 on the GROOF. GROOF, it's the Interreg European project. I will explain to you. In Europe, you have that, and in the US, you have some interesting and really big companies, and also in Canada, and they are actually doing many rooftop greenhouses. It's quite costly, and I will provide you some feedback on that, but it can be interesting if you are looking for synergies between your buildings and the greenhouse. In France, we have the famous Jardin Perché in the city of Tours. It's south of Paris. It's 1,000 square meter, around 1,000 square meter, and it's aquaponic production and hydroponic production inside. For example, here, an hotel in Bangkok, they are using quite low-tech greenhouses, not really high-tech ones, and it's on to feed the restaurant of the hotel. It's a high investment cost to compare with substrate solution or hydroponic solution. It's between 800 to 1,000 square meter, 1,050 euro per square meter, mostly due to the regulations, because of the fire regulation, public regulation, and wind and snow regulation, and lift as well. You have also, most of them are small surface, less than 1 hectare, so it's difficult to have an economy of scale like traditional greenhouses on the soil. That's why it's also higher price. There are lots of constraints to build those kind of rooftop greenhouse on roof due to city, so we have to respect the light pollution, especially during the night, for sure. It's artificial lighting, sometimes the smell, sometimes the sound, but it's the same for traditional urban farming on roof. We have most of the time also polyculture production, so it's different climatic condition on those greenhouses. It's rare to have monospecific production. There are shady conditions, high summer temperature on the city, so it's a powerful and expensive tool sometimes. And the urban regulation for the moment are not ready for all the city in the world. Example of Paris, now it's okay, but it takes times in order to have nice regulation for the greenhouse. So it's important for you to have those constraints in mind. But as you see here, for example, the Lufa farm in Canada, they develop a huge company, more than 60 or 70 employees, and they built four big greenhouses all around Montreal, and with more than 3.7 hectares of them. They provide food basket. It's their economical model. It's based on food baskets, so it's a huge deliverable system. So it's like not Amazon. It's a bit too hard to say that, but there are really nice logistical actor in Montreal in order to centralize the food and sell the food to the consumer. The food is not only produced on their greenhouses, a part of it is done, like the peppers, like the strawberries, tomatoes, also cucumber, but they can sell many things to the consumer, to the urban consumer, from chocolate to meat, to bread, etc., etc., cheese also. So they do centralization of the product and selling that back to the consumer. And they are using the greenhouses as a way to produce some plants and also a way to communicate about who they are, what they are doing. And also, they are famous because they are linked really well the building with the greenhouse in order to catch a maximum of heat from the building. They are using artificial lightings, hydroponic systems inside the greenhouse. It's quite high tech. It's like Dutch greenhouses, I will say. There are bankruptcy. There is one bankruptcy because actually in mind we just have one. It's important also to have that in mind. It's a risky business, but interesting but risky. The urban farmers in Den Haag in Holland, they went bankruptcy last 2 years ago. A few reasons for that. First, the proximity of wasteland. They have high level of tomato production in this part of the country, so they were really close to the traditional tomato growers, so hard to compete with them in terms of price. Actually, they used to produce tomatoes and salads, and also tilapia, which are fishes. It was an aquaponics system, fish plus tomatoes and salads, but they have some trouble with the prices, too high for the local producers, to compare with the local producers. They also choose, I will say, traditional products like tomatoes, salads, and tilapia, which are fishes. But why do they choose strawberries, perch, which are really different fish, not quite rare, and you can have better price with it. Why they don't use microgreens? The idea is to find a niche product, and they were choosing not really niche products. They don't also have any links with the neighborhood. They were quite close, and especially the neighborhood was really poor, and it was why don't they use any educational activities in order to increase their business? In terms of techniques, they also have many techniques, too much innovations, it's my opinion, difficult to manage that. You have hydroponics, aquaponics, on a roof, using new systems of hydroponics. Okay, it's maybe too much, too innovation can kill the innovation, it's my opinion. So they went bankruptcy for those reasons. The Interreg group is focused because it's an ongoing European project on having some small pilots in order to understand well how it works and is it really interesting for cities. So we have first results. Our main objective and main topic here is how to reduce the CO2 on those two big sectors, which are agriculture and buildings, with a transversal approach. So our idea is to see, is it really relevant to have a greenhouse on the roof? Is it feasible in terms of techniques? It is profitable. So Roof is working on that with 11 partners. We have France, Belgium, Germany, Spain, and Luxembourg. And Luxembourg is the CIDEC institute. It's a building institute on research about building, and it's leading our consortium. We have 4.9 million euro for this project. It's a 3 to 4 years project. So first, we visit and analyze projects, especially the bankruptcy, but also many projects which are working really well. We also coach projects. So we work closely with existing projects which are under construction, under design, and we help and we share many things with them. So it's projects from France, Belgium, and Luxembourg. And we also built 4 pilots. So they are under construction and the building. I will show you who and where they are. So about the coaching, quickly, we coach project in Paris, project in Nantes. This one is really interesting because it's designed and built by the Public Agency for Social Housing in suburbs of Nantes, and they want to create a link, social link, by using the greenhouse. This one is also in Tours, also by a social builder, and I already told you about this one. This one is in Belgium, and we have many meetings. It's really interesting to share with experts of energy, experts of construction, experts of agronomy, how they work and how they can improve their project. We also built 4 pilots, so they are quite small in terms of area. It's less than 500 square meter, but they are really different. For example, the one in Germany is a Chinese, I will say, or Asiatic shape. So it's quite round, and with a wall we can catch the energy and release the energy inside the greenhouse. It's built by EBF. We have the one in University of Liège in Belgium. It's going to be a research greenhouse directly linked with the building. We have the one in Luxembourg by EFSB. It's related to the canteen, to the restaurant of the office, and they want to produce only tomatoes on those greenhouse. And the one in France by Gali, which are I will say private partners. They are landscape company and urban farmer company, and they already have an existing big urban farms, and they want to link the greenhouse with the urban farms by providing plantlets or the species they cannot produce on the soil or not really efficiently. So they want to produce some of them on the greenhouse. And they are rebuilt existing agricultural buildings in order to renovate it. So we have some publications. I can send you some of them if you want, especially about LCA. We just started the LCA and to show that it can be really interesting because we don't spend much more energy to build it, and in terms of construction is okay, and we don't need too much energy to eat the system because we use energy from the buildings. We have also a publication about the bankruptcy of the urban farmers and general publication about how it can be linked with the metabolism of the city in terms of energy, water, and organic components. Guidelines are under preparation, so they are coming soon in 1 month, June, end of June. They are going to be ready. So it's going to be interesting for people who want to know more about greenhouse on a roof. On some picture just to finalize my presentation about this one. It's maybe a question. It's open question. Is it really sustainable for the city of the future, this kind of big project? Just a word about this one. It's a public building, so it's only paid by the city and the region of Paris. And the mayor of the city of Romainville, it's quite big cities, she say, I'm paying this equipment for my city. It's like a swimming pool or like a library. Do you know any swimming pool or library that can be sustainable economically? It's not economically sustainable, a library. So it's the same for this kind of new urban farms. I want this one to be a tool for my city and not only a private and sustainable economical project. That's why it's interesting, I think. It asks many questions in terms of techniques. So I'll let you think about that. Also, new techniques are producing algae by using green facade or using the roof. It's also an open question. We also think about something else rather than food production, maybe energy production, maybe for textile, maybe for, you know, for also industry, because agriculture is really open, so we can also have these things for the future. Some references, most of them are in French, sorry, in order to how to build a rooftop greenhouse, to how to manage a roof in terms of technical approach, etc., etc. And thank you very much for your attention. I hope you will have some questions, and I'm really open for discussion. Thank you very much. It was okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Guillaume. Really fascinating. Really, really nice. It's different perspectives for many aspects. Let's see if we have some questions from the audience. I do have some, but let's have the audience to comment and ask questions. Let's see whether we have some feedback, some comments.
Silvana?
Marco is going to take the eyes.
Okay. Congratulations. Your conference has been really interesting. The work done in France on green roof is really impressive. I ask you if it's possible for us to organize for our students after, of course, this COVID period, a visit with you and Silvana, of course, to the very interesting case studies in Marseille or also in Paris or other parts in France. In this way, I think it will be possible to improve our knowledge on this specific topic on professional urban agriculture on the roof. Thank you. Congratulations for your very interesting work.
Thank you very much. And I will be really pleased to help you to organize that and to link you with the European consortium also. And if you want to visit the pilots, because they're going to be finished in a few months, and it can be interesting for the students to see how it works. And yes, with pleasure. Thank you.
Same for us. Thank you.
Okay, do we have some questions and comments? Well, let's start the discussion. Guillaume, I think that I'm going to ask you a question that probably everybody's asking, because toward the end of the seminar, you were raising the issue of the sustainability, and we know that when we talk about sustainability, we think in a broader way. It's not just a matter of monetizing a business, but it's also sustainability for the advantage that can give. So do we need to keep into account the green aspects of urban agriculture in this way, or even without the greening aspects of the environment, there can be a business?
So it's a really open question. There is a question of sustainability. It's something really complex. We need more research on that, specifically about the eco services, ecosystemic services. You know, this term, it's how is it really relevant for the city in terms of water, in terms of biodiversity? We have few answers, but for urban farming, it's not so common in terms of research. So there are many fields of thinking on. I'm not here to judge the different, I will say, different techniques used by the urban farmers, because they are trying many things, and it's difficult now to say this technique is the best and you have to use it here. So now it's maybe time for research and for politicians to be a little bit more. Sorry, there is like an echo. Yeah, to have something more robust for us, to help cities, to help real estate to help people. Architects also, they really want informations, what is good, what is bad, what is wrong. But for the moment, I think we need more expertise and more research, especially for biodiversity, water, because, for example, water, when you use a system like this, the water is dirt now, dirty, because of many, the water is not transparent. It's become brown because not of nutrients, and they going to the sewage of the cities. And what is it good for a city for that? How we can clean this water? So many questions still open.
Yeah. May I ask to open the video? I think that now we can see you in face. I think the connection is quite good.
I think I opened my video, but
well, to tell you the truth is that okay, because we also take pictures, so that's why we need it.
It's okay.
Yeah. Well, I understand I mean, you are perfectly right. It is not up to us to discuss exactly which method of doing urban farming. It's just a matter of understanding. But it was puzzled. I was puzzled and actually relieved to hear about the case of the hog is quite famous for bankruptcy. Actually, there is also one in the States when bankruptcy, some indoor farm that was bankrupt. But as you mentioned, there are some basic aspects that we need to consider. I see you mentioned that there is a need for research and professionals. And I fully agree, because I'm noticing in the last 5 years that it become very trendy, this topic, and everybody seems to like these urban farming and vertical farming and rooftop greenhouses, and without the knowledge you make basic mistakes. As you mentioned, just choosing to grow a commodity, of course you cannot sell 10 euros per kilo of tomato, not even in the Netherlands, even though they pay 3 times than us, but even there you cannot do it. And also a matter of trying to understand the circular economy in terms of using energy. I mean, the resources, the inputs. I'm afraid that what is I'm afraid of is that there is a lot of enthusiasm on this topic, especially the high-tech systems, that many people feel they do not consider what are really the needs, the costs, the energy, the inputs. It seems so easy thinking that you can sell fruits and vegetables at 10, 15 euros per kilos, because if you are at that range. So do you think that the expertise that is needed and research that is needed is at the inputs more than I mean, the way of growing is there is no big deal on the way of growing, but it's implementing that in the city that is the issue.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah.
But you pointed out something special I didn't talk about, which are the indoor farms using LEDs and totally controlled environments, because it was not the topic of this webinar about roof.
In general,
in my opinion, doesn't exist indoor farms on the roof. I never see that. But the sustainability of, for example, a rooftop greenhouse, it's many materials from the big industry. It's from China, most of the components. So the gray energy is quite high. That's why the LCA we are making are important to compare with traditional greenhouses. And not lots of buildings can have this one. It's also specific buildings. Most of them are new. It's quite rare to have old buildings with a greenhouse on it. So it has to be designed just specifically to accept this kind of technical tool. But what is interesting also as well, and we forget about that at the beginning of the project, is the social interaction possible on this kind of project. It's really something we totally forget, because we were too focused on techniques too focused on business, and we forget that people want, especially during winter, they want places to be there together, to grow together, to discuss, and they don't need a huge place. It's only a few hundred square meters, but using a greenhouse is a really interesting tool to bring people together. That's why in France now, the biggest investors are from the social housing industry, I will say. It's not from the big, private companies, for example. That's an interesting topic. It's also a way to introduce a new concept of social.
Yeah, that's that my colleague Marco will agree with that. The fact that the social impact of a specific group of people. First, you mentioned the one of the things that you mentioned is growing plants for restaurants. I was thinking conversely to the sort of healing gardens, sort of orthotherapy, social cohesion among the elder or special people. I mean, in a year like this with COVID, we experienced the importance of how lucky some of us have been in the past years because the garden nearby, and how stressful could have been for people in the cities without greens. Imagine elder and I mean, the integration of these urban agriculture. You mentioned the pedagogic effect, you mentioned the training for students for visiting. So that's an aspect also that is relevant for the social aspect more than the business, right?
Right. But keep in mind that the investment is making by the social investors, but after, when it's done, it has to work. And how it works on the long term, it has to be an economical balance. That's why it's something like acupuncture. You know, acupuncture, it's really fine to find the good balance between social and economical viability. That's something it has also to be studied. I'm not a specialized in these topics, but economy and social there are lots of research that can be done on these aspects.
Yeah, it's definitely something relevant. I guess that one of the questions that I leave to the audience, one of the questions would be from agronomist professionals, agronomic engineers, and for the general agriculture, the question would be, why should I go into the trouble of growing food in the city instead of growing in the fields in general, not open field, but field in rural areas, when I have to deal with all these constraints, as you mentioned, the fire department, the regulations, and why? I guess that you have the answer already mentioned, but
there are many answers to explain that. Yeah, there are many answer to these questions, because it's how urban farming is living and why this movement is growing. It's not easy question. It's there are many. At first, I know well urban farmer, professional urban farmer now. So I think it's people who want to stay in cities. They don't want to live in the countryside. So they want to make their own living. They create their own job where they love to live, which is the cities. So that I think one of the really important points, it's the new generation, not only new generation, it can be old people. They want to create new jobs, but they want to stay on the cities. So, and they are attracted by nature, attracted by agriculture, and they create that. Also, the consumers, they want something shorter. They want to see what they eat, where it's produced. It's also an argument. Also, maybe well, it's linked with that. It's a traceability, and you are sure of what you eat because you can see it, and you trust people you see rather than people you don't see. And it's also a new way to produce new services and new products for the city, for the consumer. It's a mix. Most of the business model are mixed between production and services. It's really rare to have 100% production. It's most of the time it's a balance between services and production. And I think that the consumers, the citizen consumers, they want new services related to nature, and urban farming is providing them those new services and new products. But the idea on everybody will say that in this movement, it's we are not here to replace traditional and rural projects on rural agriculture. Of course, we cannot produce for the entire city, of course. Nobody saying that except maybe the American with the, the vertical farming activities and movement. XPONIES is saying this kind of things. He say we can be self-efficient in terms for cities, and we let the countryside and not the agriculture. But in Europe, especially, it's not this discussion, and we are against that. I mean, we are really linked close with the rural and with the agriculture, and the idea is to recreate also a link between the traditional agriculture and the consumers and the citizens from the city, because they don't know what's happened in. They don't know how we can produce a tomato, how it works to breed a pig, etc., etc. So it's also to show.
Yeah, it's the pedagogical part of this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is really important.
Oh yeah. And I can imagine Paris green. It's quite a while to see Paris. It would be nice to see it so green now. I mean, it is green, but not on the roof. It is green on the big axis. Do we have some question from the participants? Is somebody asking to ask some comments? No? I think that we cover most of it. So there is one question. I received in the chat. Are there examples of the ornamental species? I mean, I guess that the question is not related to the green walls from the landscaping. I think the question is related to the roof growing apart from the green walls, so green facade, as you call them. Can
you just repeat the question? I was some trouble with my connection.
If you have examples of cultivation of ornamental species, probably producing cut flowers, producing
yes. On the roof, in terms of urban farming, we have Floriculture project in Paris, and we have La Ferme Florale. So it's two projects, quite big, more than 1,000 square meter for each of them, and they produce cut flowers, especially for flower shop on the cities. And they are working quite well. They are not using hydroponics or XPONIES. They are using substrate techniques, and they are focused on natural and specific species, which are not the traditional roses or traditional pivoine, or I don't know how to say in English, but it's more of a niche of because we have also this, this movement in the ornamental industry, which is it's an English movement. It's flower. I forget the term. It's root flower, and they want also to new kind of cutting flowers from the not from the rose industry, but most from really local production using deep soil production, maybe organic label, etc., etc. So it's part of this movement.
Okay, so it's related to wild harvesting and wildflowers, not
wildflowers. Yes, exactly.
Okay.
I can send you a link.
Yeah. Well, actually, when you talk about the having in the vicinity supply of perishable product, you can think about some type of flowers that can be much closer to your house, to your besides the of course the landscape aspect. We have another question. What about the handling of biomass and in general cultivation waste inside a city level? Oh, I know that you know that. Okay, what about the handling of biomass at the end of the crop, I guess, and the cultivation wastes?
The question is what can we do of the waste from the urban farmers? Is it?
I think both the residues, I mean the biomass at the end of the production, and
Yes.
you can read it in the chat exactly the question. I think that is related to both the biomass, the
Yes,
residues, and the waste, probably
okay.
the out
Okay,
of
so it's part of really, there are researchers dedicated to metabolism of the cities. They call it metabolism of the cities, and they study from waste, energy, water, etc., how it can be more cycle. And so, for example, Paris, there are Sabine Barle from the University of Paris, and she work a lot of quantities and she has quantities and she know quantities of biomass that the cities is making. And so it's maybe first answer, it's a part of a science, an official science. So we are linked with them because they have a territory approach with many kind of calculations. And what is interesting with Sabine, she also make historical studies how Paris was self-efficient in terms of nitrogen, for example. And she has the answer because she know that before the local farmers, they used to catch all the waste from the city for their fields, and before there were a nice cycle. Now the cycle is not perfect, absolutely not perfect. It's linear, and the idea is to catch those wastes, a part of it. And so some business are making like this. We did some studies in terms of quantities. For the moment, it's not a lot, and I don't have numbers. I have to check Sabine Bars. She has. I can send you some links to this kind of research, and I'm sure in Italy there is also research dedicated to metabolism of the cities. And about ourselves, urban farmers, what can we do with our own waste? We try to recycle them a lot on site, and to using social networks on specific professional networks to sell them or give them for free to other farms. So there are networks inside the city. And we do not generate a lot of waste finally, because we reuse that a lot on site. And the waste can be energy if you are talking about indoor farms. For example, water can be interesting to study. We lost water for sure, and it's going on the pipelines, on the traditional sewage. And we try to reuse a maximum of the fruit which are rotten or not really nice fruits. We transform them or we sell them because people are more okay to buy it, even if they are not perfect.
And you also do have a composting system.
I compost a lot, yes. For me, yeah, it's not really an innovation, but
it's basic. Yeah. There is another question. The previous one was from Dimitra Tsureki. This one is from Federica Segala. She's asking about beekeeping. Is it integrated in the rooftops projects? Do you have in your projects an integration with beekeeping issues?
A lot. It's in really interesting question. Thank you very much. I didn't talk about this production because it's not my specialty, but you're right about the beekeepers. And now in London, now in Paris, it's not allowed to have more bees and beekeepers because there are too many of them, and there are competitions between bees and other natural bees, also the indigenous species. Actually, there are Edge 2020 project about this one. It's urban bees, and it shows that there are troubles and competition with indigenous insects, and they try to stop beekeepers on cities like Paris and London. Now it's impossible to have more. But there are projects. I know that Marseille, for example, my city, south of France, we need more because there are lake of them. So there are political communication to increase the number of bees inside the city of Marseille. But it's other cities, it's already done. It's already finished.
Too much.
Too much. Yes.
Too much. Yeah, that's when you create the umbrella between insect species.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
I copy paste some links, especially for Femme Floral and project.
Yeah.
Femme Floral, it's about ornamental flowers inside the production inside cities. And the other one, it's a really interesting research. I mean, it's in French. Sorry, again. It's about metabolism, urban metabolism.
No, we can read French. Don't worry.
Oh yes, but I'm sure you have the same. It's
yeah, no problem. Okay. Any more comments? Okay. It seems that we have quite covered this issue, and I really would like to thank you very much. Thanks very much, Guillaume, for your availability, and really, it has been really a pleasure to have you, and thanking you for your time. And as I keep saying, COVID made us to find reactions, the resilience to against the odds, and actually we are taking the opportunities to have a guest to give a presentation. So I'm really happy and glad to have you today, and we'll
thank
keep
you
in
very
touch
much.
with our projects, and you put your email in the presentation, and so people can read it and write to you for collaboration and questions. And I thank you very much, and I say goodbye to all the audience. I remind to all that we will see each other next week. We come back to Italia, and we will have well, Guillaume mentioned the microgreens production in a roof, so we can merge that. So next week we will have a production of sprouts and microgreens. Thank you very much. See you next
Thank you very
Tuesday.
much.
Thank you, Guillaume, and thank you all.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye to all.